It's all Greek to me. As the sunlight falls on the mountains, hills, and coasts of Greece, reflecting on the surface of the glittering sea, whitewashed buildings and ancient ruins, it's dazzling, brilliant, and vibrant. In ancient times, the light of Greece was unaffected by the haze of modern pollution, and was surely even more magical than it is today. Settlement in ancient Greece was influenced by geography, just as it was for the people of other cultures. High mountains separated Greek communities from one another, making it easier for the people of Greece to interact with others than it was with themselves. Most of Greece is covered with steep mountains. Mount Olympus is the highest, rising about 9,500 feet above sea level. The rest of Greece is made up of lowlands along its many miles of coastline. Greece is surrounded by seas on three sides: the Aegean to the east, the Mediterranean to the south, and the Ionian to the west. Carved out of the land where it meets the sea are many deep inlets and protected bays. It's understandable why shipbuilding, fishing, and seafaring were important in ancient Greece. In early times, coastal villages were separated by high mountains. The soil was poor and level land was scarce, but farmers were able to grow olives, grapes, and fruit and nut trees along the coast. Cattle could not graze on the steep hillside outside of Greece, so the Greeks raised sheep and goats. Greece is a small country in southern Europe, and it's shaped somewhat like an outstretched hand with fingers of land that reach into the Mediterranean Sea. The mainland of Greece is a peninsula. A peninsula is a land that's surrounded on three sides by water. Greece also includes many islands throughout the Mediterranean and the Aegean Sea. Mainland Greece is a land of steep, rugged mountains, almost entirely surrounded by turquoise blue seas. The ancient Greeks lived on farms or in small villages scattered throughout the country. These farms and villages were isolated or separated from each other by the mountains and the seas. The mountains and the seas of Greece contributed greatly to the isolation of ancient Greek communities. Because travel over the mountains and across the water was so difficult, the people in different settlements had little communication with each other. Travel by land was especially hard. People mostly walked or rode a cart pulled by oxen or mules. Roads were unpaved. Sharp rocks frequently shattered wooden wheels, and thick mud could stop a wagon in its tracks. Only wealthy people could afford to ride horses. Travelers could stop at inns on the main roads, but many inns provided only shelter. People had to bring their own food and other supplies with them. Slaves or pack animals carried bedding, food, and other necessities. With all of these goods to take with them, the Greeks often traveled in groups, moving at a slower pace than someone traveling alone. Traveling by water was much easier than traveling by land. The Greeks understood the danger of the sea and treated it with great respect. Sudden storms could drive ships off course or send them smashing into the rocking shoreline. Even in open waters, ships could sink. Most people in ancient Greece made their living farming. With limited flat land available, Greek farmers had to find the best way to use what little land they had. Some farmers built wide earth steps into the hills to create more flat land for planting. A few farmers were able to grow wheat and barley, but most grew crops that needed less land, particularly grapes and olives. Greek farmers produced a lot of olive oil, which was used for cooking, to make soap, and as fuel lamps. Ancient Greek farmers grew food for their own families, and in addition to small vegetable gardens, many farmers planted hillside orchards of fruit and nut trees. Greek farmers also raised animals, but because cattle needed wide, flat land for grazing, the ancient Greeks had to raise sheep and goats, which can graze on the side of mountains. The shortage of good farmland sometimes led to war between the Greek settlements, with each one claiming land for itself. As the population of Greece communities increased, the existing farmlands no longer produced enough food to feed all of its people. One of the solutions was to start a colony or settlement in a distant place. Many Greek communities sent people across the sea in search of new places to farm so they could ship food back home. People who set up colonies are called colonists. The ancient Greeks made many preparations before starting a journey to a new land. Often they began by consulting an oracle to ask the Greek gods whether their efforts would be successful. An oracle was a holy person who the Greeks believed could communicate with the gods. Next, the colonists gathered food and supplies. They took a flame from their town's sacred fires so they could start a sacred fire in their new home. Greek colonists faced many hardships. They had to take a long sea voyage and then find a good location for their colony. They looked for areas with natural harbors and good farmland. They tried to avoid places where the local people might oppose the new colonies. Finally, they had to build their new community and make it a success. The Greeks established colonies over more than 300 years, from 1000 to 650 BCE. This first group of settlers started as colonies called Ionia in Asia Minor, in what is present-day Turkey. Later groups started colonies in Spain, France, Italy, and Africa, and along the coast of the Black Sea. These colonies helped spread Greek culture, and some flourished through farming and trade. Colonists continued to enjoy whatever rights they once held in their home country of Greece, including the right to participate in Greek athletic games. Many Greek settlements on the mainland relied on trade with each other to get needed goods. Some had enough farmland to meet their own needs, so they were less dependent on trade. The Greeks traded among the city-states with Greek colonies and in the wider Mediterranean region. Olive oil and pottery from the mainland were exchanged for such goods as grain, timber, and metal. Most goods were carried on ships owned by merchants. These ships were built of wood with large rectangular cloth sails. Merchants had ships built, but not for speed, but for space to hold goods. Because these ships traveled only about 3 to 5 miles per hour, journeys were long. A one-way trip from the mainland could take 2 months. Navigating these ships was difficult. The Greeks had no compass or charts. They had only the stars to guide them. The stars could tell the sailor a ship's location, but not what hazards lay nearby. No lighthouses warned sailors of dangerous coastlines, and despite these dangers, adventurous sailors carried more and more goods, and trade flourished along the Mediterranean coast.